Howdy y'all. Today we are going to use the PinkFresh Studio Lantern Landscapes set, and I have on my craft station here my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine and some gold metallic cardstock. I have no clue the brand of the cardstock, but it's a good weight cardstock, and I'm taking the lantern shaped die, running it through my die cutting machine, and it absolutely cuts beautifully. I have quite a few ideas for using this lantern shaped die, so I don't think that we need to be limited to just the holiday or how it's being shown here, or maybe in other inspiration videos that you have watched. So keep that little piece that's in the center because that can be used differently at some point. So I'm going to put that aside. I will not be using it in this video, but it is something that should be kept and that you can put aside. So here's kind of what it looks like, the full little outline and the stencils. So there are several different stencil sets, as you can see here, that can be used. I'm going to use the landscape one, and it creates, I don't know, kind of like a wintry, cottagey, mountainy type scene, and I love a good scene, so we're gonna use this. The stencils are labeled and numbered and have these wonderful little triangles on them, and you may be kind of going, what are those little triangles for? You will see. We will line those up, and it helps keep us in the manner under which we need to be using them so that we're not getting off. It really helps to keep your stencils aligned. That's the word. I ended up putting that aside because I realized, oopsie, there was another little die that goes into the center. So instead of pulling out my big machine, I pulled out my Spellbinders Scout. It's just like the big Platinum 6, but small. And I really do like it for smaller dies. It's easy for me to grab. I can pick it up with one hand. It's light, really convenient. So I'm cutting out that center piece, and I'm looking here on how I'm going to align it, because the idea that I have is to keep it completely open. You technically could layer this onto that gold piece we put aside, but again, I don't want to use that. I just want to use the center piece. So now I'm pulling out my sticky mat. This sticky mat is absolutely fabulous. It is a Altenew sticky mat, and it really holds down my cardstock very well, as well as my stencils, so I'm not needing to use a lot of tape. I have my waffle flower blending brushes here and my Altenew fresh dye inks. I'm using a variety of colors, but I really love the Altenew inks. They blend very well. They are great in their pigmentation. You can make them light, dark. I love the fact that in the set, if you get the little mini cubes, you can get the set that actually goes from lighter to darker. So I am taking this ink and just kind of laying it down. And this is the color Dusk. It's a really beautiful color, but I realized I'm using the wrong blending brush. I needed something a little bit bigger for this kind of background sky that I'm doing. And I don't mind building up the ink. It actually works really well. And this is going to smooth out because it is a dye ink. So it turns out to be really beautiful. But I do have a dye ink blending brush that is just designated for dye ink. So that's what I've pulled. I'm tapping off onto my little sticky mat because I want it to be a little softer than going direct from the ink pad to the paper. And I'm going to move on to another part of this stencil. As you saw, I covered up a piece, and this was the windows. So I am taking my smaller blending brush back into my hands, and this is the sea glass color. So it's kind of a bluey green sort of color. I guess more blue than green, but I don't know. maybe depending on the day, I might see gray and I might see blue, who knows. But I'm using that to highlight where the windows are. So I've kind of covered the top. I'm gonna go ahead and put my paper, it's just a piece of scrap paper, but over the bottom as well. I wanna make sure that I'm not accidentally covering what is the road. Now, maybe the thought was, you could do darker windows and have the darker little road leading up to the cottage. I don't know, but that's not what I wanted to do. And I wanted my windows to be different, but yet I wanted them to be still along kind of like what a glass effect kind of would be. All right, so moving on. I'm taking the other piece of the stencil because each of these stencils has kind of two stencils into one full size here. So I'm lining that up and I'm gonna take a look and see what we've got going on here, which is those mountain peak snow tops. But lo and behold, I changed my mind because I have an idea that I want to do. So I'm actually going to put that aside and move on to the next stencil that is in line. And this is actually going to color the mountains themselves. So I'm lining up, you see where those little triangles? Oh gosh, how easy is that? Instead of trying to just look at all the little pieces within the stencil and lining them up, I just line up those little triangles. Line up the triangles. That's all you need to do. Line them up with the piece that you die cut and that I used as a base to keep my little, I don't know, whatever this lantern center is. So anyway, I'm going to use this gray. It is still an Altenew gray, and it's called Misty Morning. That's what it is, Misty Morning. So I'm using Misty Morning, and I'm going to use this color for the actual mountains. So I pull out my little waffle flower blending brush that I have for gray inks, and then I'm tapping it off, and you'll notice I go oopsie and tap off into the blue ink. Great job, me. Oh well. Anyway, it happens. So you'll see there's kind of like this bluish tone, I guess, to the gray, which is fine. It doesn't matter. It still works. Trust me. When you see the end result, it still works. So I think that at some point here, I actually tap back into the blue again because, of course, it left my blending brush and I needed to kind of make something a little more uniform. I also am going directly from the ink pad this time into the stencil because I'm trying to cover up some of that blue. But you know, there's lighting that we take into effect here as well. So maybe the light is coming from, you know, whatever the left side is, that's west, I think. I don't know direction. Ask my mother. I'm geographically challenged and directionally challenged. Okie dokie. So here I'm finishing up the blending of the mountains, and I'm going to pull back out my blue blending brush because I want to, again, add some of that blue. So I didn't grab the blue ink itself. I'm just picking up from my sticky mat here. And then that way I'm kind of adding it on, sharing some of the love from the blue that I initially put down as a little bit of an oopsie. But again, it works, and you know, you can blend your different colors. We can do whatever the heck we want. So we're going to move on to some pinks, and I'm going to pull out the rose quartz color. I really want to use this on the door, so I'm not changing up my stencil, but this is going to have, I think, a really kind of cute contrast to everything else. And I didn't want it to be like really red. I didn't want it to be a bright color. We have a lot going on in the scene already. I didn't want to distract from the actual mountains and everything else that is going to go in this actual stenciling of the scene and then the final card. So just a little bit of that rose quartz pink color and for the door. I think it turns out actually really cute when you see I lift up the stencil here. I mean, it's just subtle. but I think it's subtly good. I'm going to switch over to the other side of this stencil. And I like to kind of flip through sometimes the other stencils to see really what order I want to put them in and where my creativity is going to take me. So once I get this lined up, again, honestly using those little tick marks that are the die cut triangles and aligning those to the triangles on the stencil really is very, very helpful. So now we are working on this cottage church. I don't even know what it is. I don't necessarily know if it's a church or not, but it doesn't have a steeple. Whatever. I'm going to use sand dunes. So I've decided to make my little cottage or church, whatever this is, brown, or a brownish, I should say, color. It's kind of a light brown. Again, we're kind of doing everything a little bit light because we have that gold lantern itself and the whole scene has enough color. So I don't want any one color to pop over any other color at this point. So just doing some quick ink blending, tapping off into the actual lid of my ink pad. I really think that that helps keep it from putting too much ink when you initially put it down into the space, so it helps everything else to kind of blend really well. And if you look at this stencil closely, you'll see that the windows, the door, and where there's going to be like a little wreath, that all of that is covered up. So we really are only doing the actual frame of this house, cottage, church, whatever we want to call it. What do we want to call it? What do we want to call it? We're just going to call it a cottage. I started it with the cottage. We're going to keep it with cottage. And then look at how fabulous this turns out. Just that brown in there, that sand dunes color. Oh, that's really, really cute. I'm aligning the next stencil, which is going to do the actual wreath and all of the greenery. So I'm pulling out the mountain pine color. Or maybe not. Yes, I am. Y'all like how I do that? Sometimes I don't even know what the heck I'm doing, but it's mountain pine. Mountain pine freshness. Oh, I love the smell of pine. Do y'all love the smell of pine? I love the smell of pine. So anyway, let's not get off track like I normally do, but we're going to go ahead and take our other waffle flower ink blending tools. Small, nice, compact, gets really well into these smaller little spaces, as you can see. And I'm just doing the exact same motion as I always do. I put my blending tool into my ink, tap off into the lid, and then I bring that ink down. If I need a little more ink, you're noticing that I'm going to pull it from the lid. Why not use the ink that is already there than actually going into the ink pad itself? This also, in my opinion, helps it to be a little softer where maybe you want it to be. So I may want that color, need some more on my brush, but I don't necessarily want it to be as heavy as dipping directly from the ink pad, even with tapping it off. So that's my mindset and how I go about thinking of this. And you can see I've got some, darker shades in there and some lighter shades, but this mountain pine color is probably one of my favorites. Green is my absolute favorite color. So, and here it's coming to life even more. So now we have some additional little element here. And that is going to be to line up those little triangles again so we can get the wreath bow. We need to get that bow colored. And that's where I'm going to add some additional pop of color in here. And I pulled my red blending brush out and I go ahead and I see if there's enough ink on there that's going to give me the effect of the bow being red like I want it. Sometimes there's enough ink on your blending brush. You don't need to actually pull one, but I did. It was not coming out as red as I wanted. So I pulled my Catherine Pooler Cranberry Fizz ink and I love this color. You'll see me use it quite often because I really truly love this color of red. It is perfect for the holidays, perfect for any season, any time of year. It's just really beautiful. And I really wanted the pop of color to come with this bow because it's going to tie in nicely, I think, with the overall card. And I wanted the scene to be just that, a scene, but the bow to really kind of be more of the focal point and drive you to the center of this lovely cottage. I'm switching the stencils. In this stencil, we are going to color the actual little path that is leading to our cute, quaint cottage. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my grays. I want to use the Nimbus color ink, and this is going to keep it gray, but definitely darker than what we did with the mountains. So I still wanted it to be along the gray line. I didn't want it to be too dark, which is why I didn't go with that dark night that you're seeing there. And I didn't want to do black either. So I have my finger dauber, and this allows me to really get some good coverage in there. I like a good dauber for something I need to actually put down quite a bit of ink for. I think it works really well. And then you can see when I take that away how that really kind of makes that road pop against the rest of everything else. Because, you know, the little path or whatever is truly to be darker than anything else. But anyway, we're moving on to the next stencil. Or so I thought. Once I really kind of was looking at it and then deciding what I wanted to do, I realized I needed to grab the next one that was in line that is going to actually do kind of the eaves of our cottage. And I decided to keep the same color as what I did in my path. That way the trim of our cottage is really standing out. So I'm going to use my little finger dauber, you know, here that already has the Nimbus ink color on it. And I'm going to stick with that same color. I thought about changing it up, but then I said, no, let's not do that. I don't know about y'all, but I do not like to really rub my little daubers in the stencils. It seems to tear them up. But anyway, I got the ink down quite well, and look at the trims on that. Doesn't that make the whole scene really pop? Just that added extra bits of dark. But again, now you understand more of why I personally was not wanting to go too heavy on any of the other elements of the stencil. So now I'm going to move on, and this is going to be the snow tops and the snow on the trees and the eaves of the cottage. Once I have this good and lined up, I'm going to do a quick cleanup, and I'm going to pull out my texture paste that is translucent. This is the Distress Texture Paste in translucent because I don't want it to be opaque. I don't want to lose actually some additional shine, but whatever. And I'm putting a generous amount, not tons, but a good even layer through the stencil so that it covers those mountaintops, the eaves, and the trees. So I'm going to put my stencil aside, my palette knife aside, and I'm going to take this off of my sticky mat, trying not to smudge any of that paste that I just put down. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that aside for just a sec. Have my tweezers, get my rock candy, and then I'm going to glitter this up. Do we love rock candy? Yes, we do. Do we love glitter? Absolutely. Is it an outdoor activity that some people say? Absolutely. Are we doing this inside? Absolutely, because that's what we're doing. But look at that. It just adds additional dimension, which we love. And it's also going to bring some really great shimmer and shine. I've pulled back out my die cutting machine, and I'm going to use this Evergreen Sparkle by PinkFresh Studio. It's a cover plate, and I'm going to use it on some dark navy cardstock. This blue with the gold will look really great, and I think will actually highlight the scene quite well. After running this through my die cut machine, I finally get to put it away for the last time for this card, I promise. And I have my beautiful blue background. Remember, you can use cover plates like this for anything all year round. It doesn't have to be thematic just because they release it during a specific holiday. I checked that it fits well on my base, and it does. And now I'm making sure that that metallic gold lantern also works with that card front, and it does. It is the focal point, and it fits beautifully. But I'm not done with the trimmer. Nope. I needed to trim this up just a little bit so I could have that white border that I wanted, which peeking out through these little stars, I guess you could consider them stars, crosses, I have no idea, whatever. It just works well together. So once it's all trimmed up the way that I want it, I am going to check it out against my card base just to make sure it truly is aligning how I want it. Now I know I'm tilting it a little bit, and that's because I need to be able to see. So, you know, that's the way love goes, right? That's what Janet tells us. So, and I'm grabbing my wonderful, fabulous Barely Arts glue, and that's what I'm going to use to adhere this base. Whatever. The base to the base. Who's got the base? Drop the bass. Drop the beat. It's all about the bass, about the bass, about the bass. Anyway, does anybody else's brain work in song? Something happens, tune just gets stuck in there. Yeah. All right, glad I'm not the only one. So see what I mean? This is looking fabulous. I love the white. I just love that white peeking through that blue cardstock like that. And then look at where that's going to line up. I die cut a few extra pieces off camera of the lantern and the center scene so that I could really kind of have some additional dimension and it not be quite as flat. That's not what I wanted. So I'm taking my Barely Arts glue. Love this stuff. Sorry I get off camera, but I got to be able to see, and I'm quite blind actually. And I'm going to go ahead and layer up all of my pieces. I sped up this part of the video just to kind of get through it a little bit quicker. I do take my time to try and line things up as best as possible because I don't do anything straight, so I have to be extra careful in life, especially when it comes to my card making. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just being extra careful that everything is lining up properly. So let's get to finishing up our card. I have some scrapbook.com little strips here that I'm going to use to pop up my lantern. So I needed them to be quite thin, and I honestly don't know what size these are. Maybe the 1/8 inch. I think they may be the 1/8 inch width. Anyway, so I'm adding those to each of the sides, and then I'm going to continue to build this all the way around on the top and the bottom of this lantern piece because I really do want it to pop out from the stars. And my hope is, depending on how you look at it, it almost looks like that lantern is in front of a night sky in some aspect. I mean, use your imagination. But that's where my brain was going with this. So I'm just cutting off strips and strips and strips and placing them all down. So that's what we're doing here. And once I have all of my strips on here, I'm going to take off the release paper from the back and I'm going to align it onto my card the way that I want it. So I'm just kind of eyeing it, making sure that it's in the center, not just top to bottom, but also left to right, so vertical and horizontal, and making sure, again, I'm just kind of taking some care because I don't do anything straight and I'm afraid that it's going to, you know, get all wonky, which it possibly could. As you see here, I'm adjusting it. So I'm holding it up so I can see for myself, like dead on, what it is looking like and if it's actually straight. So It looks pretty straight to me, so I'm actually going to go ahead and press that down, which I don't fully press it down until it's to my liking. I'm going to take the center seam piece and I'm going to wash, rinse, and repeat, meaning let's take our strips again, put some of that onto the scene background, or backing, I should say, and then take that release paper off, and then I'm going to adhere it onto my card in the center of the lantern. So this piece, I actually kind of was trying to tuck it up under a little bit, so I had to pull the lantern just a smidgy. Now, it didn't look like there was enough space to actually glue it, which is why I went the route that I did and made sure just the lip of the lantern on the top and the bottom actually kind of came over that scene. I'm going to take my strips and put those aside just for the moment and take my Tim Holtz Ideology Christmas 2024 sticker book, and it's got a lot of great stickers, but these red sentiments totally catch my eye, especially this winter wishes. So that is what I'm going to use. I grabbed a piece of scrap cardstock to put this on. It happens to fit quite perfectly width-wise, so that's really nice. And then I'm taking my Barely Arts glue, putting that on the back because I really want it to stay, and I don't want it to, you know, sometimes with stickers they kind of lose their adhesiveness, so I really want to make sure that it's good and down. Then I am taking my scrapbook.com scissors and I'm just cutting along the edge on the top and the bottom of the sentiment to get rid of all of that extra white piece. I love these scissors, by the way. I think they're really great, and they do, I guess, avoid stickiness, or they're easy to clean if you have to cut through any kind of adhesive paper or backing or something like that. So they're really nice. I like them. And then I am going to take my sentiment and I want to put it right there towards the bottom, and it's going to make that bow on that wreath pop even more. So I'm going to pop this up a little bit with some dimensional adhesive strips, just like we did with our lantern. So we actually have several different dimensional items on this card, which is totally my jam. I love dimension. It makes my heart happy. It makes my eyes happy because then I get to look at it. So, yep. All right. Anyway, I digress with happiness. I'm aligning that again, holding it up. Got to make sure that it's, you know, as quote unquote straight as I could ever be. And then I push it down. So I love the way that this turned out. I think the card's beautiful. I love the lantern. There's some simple elegance to this, and the sparkle from the rock candy and that red bow tying into the sentiment really just makes it, in my opinion, a wow card. I hope this card brought you some joy and jolly goodness for the season and some inspiration, ways that you can figure out how to switch up your stencils so you can add additional elements of dimension, of sparkle, shine, and magic. Until next time, take care. Thank you for supporting me by subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing this video.